Hey guys, so I've decided to make a complete new video series where I basically just talk about how to make realistic people portraits, because that is the thing I specialize in most, and I've always wanted to teach how to do it, but I've decided that it would take too long to do it all in one video, and you really have to learn how to make a face in parts anyways, because you have to really learn how to do certain parts of the face before you can smush it all together and make it look accurate. These are the materials that you will need. They don't have to be the specific brand, but these are what I'm using. You will need a case of pencils that are from 6B all the way down to about 4H. And they should look something like this. It goes from, 6B all the way down to 3H, which 6B is the darkest color. Then HB is like your pencil color, like your regular number 2 pencil. And then you have 4H, which is really light and fine and great for light shading. So you'll need that. These pencils right here, Lyra pencils, they were $10 on Amazon plus shipping. Some type of eraser that's really small, like this one. This is a Mono Zero Tombow eraser. You can get one on Amazon for, I think I paid about $8 for this plus a couple dollars shipping. And these work really good. They come with 2 packs of extra eraser. Then you'll need a mechanical pencil. I have this fancy one that's from Hobby Lobby, but you can use really any one you want. This one's a 0.3 millimeter, so it is really tiny, so it's great for details. And then you will need at least one dry brush, about like this one. And you will also need a knead eraser. I typically use this one and my other eraser a lot, but if you only have one of either one of these, then that's fine. And I'll try to put the link to all these items in the description if I remember. I might forget, but hopefully I remember. Okay, so today I think I will start with eyes, because eyes are, in my opinion, the most important part of a face and making it recognizable to the person you're actually trying to draw. And also, they can be quite difficult for most people, and if you can't draw eyes, you can't draw portraits. So eyes are also the first thing I started teaching myself how to draw. I was really terrible at them at first, and then I got really good at them because I did it so many times. You look at the reference photo that you have, and I a lot of times like to start out with the bridge of the nose, which usually I don't have a reference photo with me right now, but anyways, I usually like to start with the person's bridge of the nose, and then I decide where I'm going to start their corneas, and it's usually about this distance away from the eyes, and I always start with the small roundness of the corneas. And then I do the other side and make sure that it is same place on the face. You can also, I used to get a ruler to do this. Now I either draw a line like that or use my pencil to see the distance between them, and if they are the same height on the face. So then take your eye and you do this top part right here, or at least that's what I do first. And then I like to take this, start here, and this usually dips down a little bit because right here it'll have your waterline. And a lot of people forget to add the waterline, but when I draw, I like to imagine that this is the inside line of the eye. The part that is not the roundest. And then I start here making my waterline. And now I do that on the other side. And to measure the length of the pencils, a lot of times I will just use my pencil and kind of mark on my pencil. See right here, it is the length from here to here. So I want to make sure that this eye is also that same exact length. A lot of times I'll draw a straight line to make sure it's the same height also, because these lines are very easily erased, especially if you're using a mechanical pencil with a very, very light touch. Then do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now these two right here, ends of your eyes, should be a little bit curved up from this original line. It should not go straight across. Okay, and then I do the crease line over top of the eye. And it's not perfectly round like a lot of people think. It's a little bit squared, and you come out like that. because it goes around this eye. And whenever you are drawing eyes, do not do one at a time and then go over to the next one. Like, do not complete one whole one and then completely start the next one. They need to be drawn about the same time, like I'm doing step by step together, or it'll be a lot harder on you to draw two eyes to make them look about exactly the same. So now I'll go to my pupil, and let's say that she's looking upwards for this one. So just as an example. So to make her look upwards, I a lot of times will sketch out where the whole iris would be compared to if it was inside the eye, because that is easily erasable and covered up. That way your circle looks a lot more like an actual circle. And you want to make sure that they are pretty much in the exact same spot by judging how far away they are from each cornea and corner. And try and make them the same size, otherwise your person will look either cross-eyed or just weird. Okay, so then I add my reflection and my iris and my pupil. And the reflection needs to be in about the same place on each eye because, you know, typically the right light is reflecting on them and it will be in the exact same spot. So now you've got this sketch here, and you'll probably want to add a sketch of your eye. Go ahead and add the sketch of your eyebrows, which I do just by judging where the end of the eye is, and it depends on the person you're drawing. Sometimes their eyebrows will be farther away from their eyelid, but on this person I'm just adding them at a pretty average faraway spot. Another tip that I forgot to mention, if you are having trouble drawing the shapes of your eyes to look like the person you want them to, what you can do is just turn your reference photo upside down, and then you can turn this upside down. And then you just draw your reference photo based on the shapes you see. I learned in psychology that this works because our brains, whenever they are right side up, we are trying to draw an eye as we see in our head rather than just copying the exact shapes on the paper. But whenever they're turned upside down, we're not used to seeing a person's face or eyes turned upside down. So we just draw the shapes that we see, and a lot of times it ends up being a lot more accurate than drawing them right side up. And I use this not just for eyes, I will use this just for drawing people in general, especially if I'm having a real hard time getting it to look accurately like them. And I've used this for years. And now, I take this and open it up and grab 6B. I like to keep, they will come in order, and I usually like to keep mine in order so it's easier to grab. I like to start with the iris. It depends a lot on your reference photo, but a lot of times the iris will have a dark circle around it for most part. I go along the iris, making this black, and then I go over top of it, going this way, because typically most eyes are dark around here. To sharpen my pencils, I like to use this kind. It's a Prismacolor pencil sharpener. I got this at Hobby Lobby for a couple bucks, probably like $8. Okay, and then go and completely black out the pupil except for what you've drawn right here. And a lot of times it helps to make the reflection go over the pupil. It makes it kind of seem a lot more realistic if it's going over this completely black area also, as well as the shaded part up at the top of the eye. Then I like to take my mechanical pencil and just start kind of making these lines. And be aware of, in your reference photo, where the highlight of the eye is, because it's usually shaded up here, and then there's either a highlight around here, or around here. And depending on which photo you're using, you have to be really cautious of that. Especially when you're drawing these lines that will be in there later. A lot of times eyes will have really dark spots kind of coming up here around the outside of the iris. You just have to really pay attention to the shapes and designs that are actually in your reference photo's eyes, because sometimes eyes aren't like that, especially brown eyes don't have a lot of detail because they're so dark. Then I like to take my blending stump, which I forgot to show before, and just kind of smoothly go over everything so it's not so harsh and more blended in. And then I'll take my knead eraser, squeeze it down, and make the highlights that are necessary. And I love drawing eyes, so I will mess with them forever. Just trying to make them look exactly right. I also like to make sure I add a little bit of shading around the pupil to where it looks like it's a little bit darker right around here and it gets lighter, because that gives it the illusion of being sunken in, which pupils really are, because a pupil is really just a hole inside your iris. Clean that up a little. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other one. Okay, now I move on to the corners of the eye. And you can do any of these steps in any way you want to. This is just the order I like to go in. So a lot of times there will be this little area here that's darker, and then it'll be darker around in here and kind of dark here, and then there'll be like a reflection here because it's shiny. And then there'll be some shadow here from this being round. So you have to, if you don't add the shadow, the eye won't look realistic because it won't look round. And also a lot of the details you add to the eye depend on if somebody is, or if your subject is wearing makeup or not. I like to take a lighter pencil, usually an HB pencil, to try and do this shading because it's got to be so light and fair. And the lighter the color, the more fine it is. And what I mean by that is whenever you shade, it's not as holy. You can't see as much of the paper through it. It's smoother. Whereas if you shade with a darker one, you can see the difference. Here's where the eye can get darker. And a lot of times it gets really dark and almost black right up through here. And the shading goes along the waterline just like on the other side. And this one, I use this one a little bit more on this side than the other one. And you want to make the shading go as evenly out as you possibly can, which means there shouldn't be no straight line of one color and then a straight line of another. It just blends smoothly together. Then I like to take my brush and go over this. Then a lot of times I like to use my knead eraser and just do a little highlight here, because since eyes are shiny also, they reflect, so I like to add reflections like that. And then maybe kind of make it a little bit lighter here since I kind of got it a little too dark. And you have to have a really light touch when doing things like this, because you want your blending to be as smooth as possible. A lot of times whenever you are drawing two eyes like this, the person will have a lot more shading on one side than the other. So a lot of times the eyes are not going to be shaded exactly the same. Some of them, this one will be lighter and this one will be a lot darker because the light is coming from here. But for this example right here, I'm pretending like the light is coming from directly in front of them. Okay, now this is where I like to start with the lids. And you can still use your mechanical pencil, except for this time, give it a darker touch. And this works really good if you have a mechanical pencil where you can choose the option to have a darker colored lid. for example, this lead, instead of being HB like a standard mechanical pencil, is B, which makes it a little darker and a little easier to work with. And then at this point, I like to take this and kind of blend it out this way, because this is showing that your lids right here have a shadow from where they are dipped under this other layer of skin right here. So this is the low light, whereas right about here will be the highlight. And it gives the 3D effect. You can, if you don't have any paintbrushes at home, this paintbrush is just a basic Dollar Raleigh brush that I got at the art section in Walmart, and those actually work really well. The cheap ones at Walmart with these fine bristles work really well for shading with graphite. For shading, you need to hold the pencil pretty far back. See, I am holding it all the way here at the end and laying it flat like this and just kind of going back and forth very lightly and pressing down when I want to get in a darker spot like this one. A lot of times it's good to shade with an HB first, even if you have a dark spot. Say this was really dark and it needed to be about a 6B color. It's better to shade with a pencil that is lighter, so that when you go, then you can go over it with the darker pencil and it will have less of those holes I showed you earlier. Just round out this eyebrow arch shape right here. Then after cleaning your brush off on your pants or your side of your paper or whatever, do this. You need to clean off your brush every so often, or it won't just shade or smudge what you have on the paper already, it will also add to the paper. And unless you want to do it that way, you don't. Because it really kind of messes up the shading process. So I like to wipe it on my pants every now and then. And a lot of times, after you blend, you realize that it's not as defined as you want it to be. So just go back over it. Now, usually you will have pores or shiny spots on the arches of your eyebrows where they are either highlighted with makeup or highlighted naturally one. And a lot of times I'll just take the tip of the brush, or not the tip of the brush, the tip of the eraser, and dot around like this. And make sure it's highlighted all underneath the brow. Unless your reference photo doesn't say that. I'm not using a reference photo. Alright then, I like to take my 2B whenever I'm doing this part because it's not as harsh. And most of the time I try to twist my paper around for this, but I can't really like this. So I start out with this lid right here. And a lot of times it's really highlighted right here. Then the white goes up and then it slowly gets darker here. And then then after you shade this little part, it goes back into being a highlight. And then once you get about here, it's again a shaded area. And it gives the illusion of it being real and rounded. And then if you really want to go into hardcore detail, which I didn't start doing until recently, I added little pores on mine. And then after doing this, I take this and I highlight with it. Highlights are really, really important, especially when drawing people. Now I'll take my 2B and go lightly right here around my waterline. everyone's eyes will have some sort of shadow under them like this, giving the roundness of the very, very underneath of their eye, which has a very little highlight right here. And I could do a very better job on this, well, in general, and also this little area right here, but I'm trying to do this quickly, otherwise my video will be way too long. Then make sure your waterline is highlighted slightly. And then you can add highlights here, right above these lines, because if your eye is, you know, glistening, it kind of glistens right around there, if you notice. Alright, now this is when I take my mechanical pencil and do eyelashes. Okay, so now that I got this done, I want to go to my waterline here, and you always start right here with your eyelashes, and just do that. Now you want to make some eyelashes stick together, because that's how they are, like this. Do one like that, then another one goes together towards it. And then once you start getting here, make them kind of come upwards like this. Here they start to kind of round back out to that way. And also get a lot smaller and less thick. And now for the top eyelashes. I will want to get my 6B pencil really sharp again and just go out. You should also try and copy the shapes of the eyelashes in your reference photo. Same concept with these, kind of make them clump together a little and go down like this. Now typically I think these are actually a little too long that I'm doing right here by accident, but you get the basic concept. Just go with whatever your reference photo says to go with how long they are, because you know sometimes people wear fake eyelashes, like let's say that this lady has fake eyelashes and they are this long, but naturally most eyelashes do not go this long. They usually go to about here. And then you can go over this one with the sharpened 6B with some of them, because some of them do come out to be a lot darker in a photo sometimes. This, and a lot of times there's a dark spot right here where the nose rounds and goes out to here. And you gotta leave this part right here as blank as possible and as gradually blank as possible. And a lot of time, and I would go and show down through here, but it's just a lot more shading. And the shading can be different depending on the photo, because sometimes the eye might not have as much shading right here and it might not be that dark. I am just going by what I typically see in photos. It all depends on the photo you get and the lighting. But this is just the basics of how to do eyes. You really need to pay really close attention to the shapes in your photo. That's how you get an accurate drawing. And I'm not going to, I can do the nose a lot better, but I'm really not going to teach how to do the nose at this moment, because I'm going to make a whole separate video about that. I also do not have enough time to explain the eyebrows in this video, so I will make a completely separate video explaining how to do the eyebrows. For now, I'll just have them done. And then you're pretty much done. And all you gotta do is sign it now. Alright, so that is how you draw eyes, and thank you for watching the first video in my How to Draw a Portrait series. For the next couple videos, I'll be doing eyebrows, noses, mouths, facial structures, hair, and just anything I can to help you learn how to draw realistic portraits. So, I hope you enjoyed the first one of this series. Thanks for watching!